Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder, saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. Oh, and spoilers for the following things. You got them all? Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. There is an interesting discussion around God of War 2. Kratos kills the Sisters of Fate and gains the power to manipulate time. Instead of going back and saving the family that he constantly mourns, he uses time manipulation to get revenge on Zeus and the gods. But why? Well, the answer is simple. His anger was so intense that he could no longer see straight. He became so obsessed with revenge that he lost focus on what actually mattered to him. This confuses people because most of us haven't felt that level of anger. Now, I bet you've been pissed before, but probably not to this extent. This is where wrath leads to self-destruction. And as you know, I'm a bit softer on revenge than most. Again, this is a joke, by the way, but that's not what this video is about. While wrath is in fact one way to make people blind, another is pride, an inflated sense of self. And oddly enough, this isn't one that people seem to question nearly as much. When a character makes a poor decision because their bruised ego demands that they make sure that they're not dismissed or belittled. We don't question when that happens. How many interrogation scenes in Law & Order are there where the police goad a confession out of a criminal due to their bruised egos? And it's never questioned because we all know someone like that. Someone who thinks that they're so great that everyone is beneath them and everyone needs to hear about it. And if their pride is attacked at all, they will lash out with the pure fury of hell.
Would you please shut the hell up?
Pride cometh before the fall, every single time. One of my favorite examples comes from Death Note. It's an odd manga anime for shonen, its genre at least. It's all about logic. Pride cometh before the fall, every single time. One of my favorite examples comes from Death Note. It's an odd manga anime for shonen, its genre. It's all about logic. Pride cometh before the fall, every single time. One of my favorite examples in fiction comes from Death Note. It's an odd manga/anime for shonen, its genre. The story is all about logic, strategy, and wordplay rather than fighting. We follow a character named Light who gains access to the Death Note. If he writes someone's name in it, they will die. Pretty self-explanatory. His mission is to use the Death Note to murder criminals and reform the world under the delusion that there is a God in the world punishing those who do wrong. Pretty simple, narcissistic example right here. But he's not the only one with an ego. His opponent L is really only invested in the case because of how interesting it is. But the funny thing is that Light wouldn't really have an opponent if he kept his pride in check. Near the start of the series, L places a double on a television program where the substitute calls out the mysterious killer named Kira by the super intelligent population for these various crimes. The fake L promises to find and punish Kira, attacking Light's ego. In a show of arrogance, Light immediately writes the double's name in the Death Note, but L soon reveals that it was a red herring. The person Light killed was actually a criminal on death row, and the broadcast was only sent to a specific area in Japan. If Light did nothing, L would have not immediately known where to find him. Now, L probably would have eventually figured out more things, but Light would have gotten a lot more time, and he might have immediately gotten away with his crimes. The entire story and Light's eventual downfall comes because of his pride and self-sabotage. If he kept his cool, he would have forever had everything he ever wanted.
Oh, it's so obvious. I would have never thought of that.
The same thing with Walter White, high school teacher turned drug dealer. There are several points where Walter could have gotten away with absolutely everything if he just let Jesse go in season 3, cut his losses there, or if he let Hank believe that Heisenberg was actually dead, or if he got rid of the book that caused Hank to realize that Walter was the villain all along. In each instance, Walter could have just checked his pride and his ego, and then he did the smart thing, and then he would have finished his life in relative happiness and success, with only Skylar ever knowing about his sins. In fact, everyone else would have considered him a good man who did everything he could in his dying days to provide for his family. Imagine a scenario where Walter just accepted that he wasn't the top dog. If he worked peacefully under Gus, if he was a good, loyal worker to Gus, Walter would have been taken care of. He would have been in the middle of the cartel mess, but nothing would have changed after that. In fact, Gale might have been in the middle of the mess instead of Jesse, because the cartel might not have been invested in a guy that's going to die soon. Walter would have had unlimited resources and money at his disposal. Hell, if he was friendly enough with Mike, you know for a fact that Mike would have looked after Walter's kids when he was gone. All he had to do was be humble and not be a complete and utter asshole to everyone.
Really makes you think.
You can see real life examples of this too. In the year of our Lord 2024, we're living through the oldest election season ever. Look, I'm not a political guy, and I will not tell you what I think about either party right now. I just think that we can all agree that this is a mess brought about by a collection of egos from people who really should have retired at least a decade ago, if not 2, but pride and a taste for power is getting in the way. It's basically the show Succession brought to life, or Game of Thrones for that matter. There's an obvious solution moving forward. There are obviously more pressing matters to deal with right now. There's no shame in stepping down for the actual betterment of yourself and others, but the sweet taste of sitting on the throne, looking down at the masses, is too much to surrender. No one can do it better than you. No one can handle the responsibility better than you. Only you can do this, no one else. You're the main character. You're the person who can fix everything, and things would be a lot better if everyone realized it and got on board. They're the problem, not you, and it's your job to take them out, even if it dooms you and everything you care about in the process. And we can go to smaller shows of pride that still end up hurting themselves and others. There are plenty of family shows where money, prestige, or fame goes to someone's head and they need to lose it all to remember who they are. God of War 2018 comes to mind, where in the sequel series, Kratos' son Atreus learns that he's a god and immediately starts acting more arrogant. In Kim Possible, Ron Stoppable becomes a millionaire and immediately starts acting differently. In Spider-Man 3, Peter lets his popularity, and the symbiote to some extent, get the better of him. Or in real life, Boogie 2988 let his own arrogance and laziness get the better of him to the point where he's a laughing stock of a liar. And worse, he's now outright hated because he just scammed his audience with a crypto scheme and possibly lied about having cancer. I don't know, I don't have any proof on that one. Boogie is an OG on the internet and YouTube, to the point that I remember him almost more than anyone else. Hell, when I was in college, a marketing professor used his Francis character as an example for something. I don't remember what it exactly was, but still, it's insane the heights that this guy reached. But then he let it all come crashing down due to his ego and arrogance. All he had to do was be the cheerful, wholesome guy on the internet and play his characters to react to different news. Hell, he could stream all day if he's bored enough to use the crypto scan as an excuse. Apparently you needed one of his stupid coins to join a Discord server when, I don't know, you could have just gotten on a streaming platform and played games and interacted with them too and made money. It's not that hard. And stop saying the N-word. Only complete morons want you to say the N-word. It's very easy to avoid that word. I mean, if he was smart, he might not be making millions upon millions of dollars, but could you imagine if he got over himself and lost the weight and documented the series? If he became healthy and we got to watch him, he could have been Subway Jared, but without the terrible aspects that was revealed later. But Boogie's ego couldn't let him. He just deserved to get views without putting in the work, without getting creative, without innovating. There's an entire documentary on him where it feels like he thinks that he deserves things. If he just stayed humble, put in the work, and didn't do something completely immoral, then he probably would be one of the most famous and beloved people on the internet right now. Yeah, think about that timeline.
Oh, I made myself sad.
Stories about pride coming before the fall are all too real, both in fiction and reality. You will end up self-sabotaging yourself, and some of it might come from personality disorders, stuff that can't be helped with anything other than therapy and medication. But I think that most of it could be solved with a moment of pure awe, where you stare at the vast, ever-expanding universe and realize that you're not the main character, that every single person around you is an individual with their own perspectives, feelings, and thoughts, that you are special as an individual, but that doesn't mean that you're better than anyone else. There's a big problem with that type of mindset right now, and I promise you that we'll keep seeing that people's egos will take them down eventually. You know, if accusations of allegedly talking to minors and trying to seduce them doesn't do it first. I would just like to say, ew. You're welcome to disagree with all this. That's fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
I've made a huge mistake.
Thank you all so much for watching.
You're still here?
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. You bye. Boom.
Do not despair.